Hi guys, I'm Alice and this is 4 Seasons Plus, where I talk about everything to do with houseplants, gardening and just being out in nature. So for today's video I thought we would take it right back down to the basics and do a how to care for or tips to care for the Monstera Deliciosa or the cheese plant. So this here is my cheese plant, my big cheese plant that I bought nearly a year ago now, and she has come on in leaps and bounds since then. So I feel like I have got her care down to a T now. Now I know that there are lots of other tips and tricks out there, and feel free to go and look at them because there are some amazing tips out there, but I'm just going to tell you what has worked to get my baby from what was a tiny little plant with, I think she had 6 leaves on to begin with, up to this with a new leaf growing. And touch wood, since growing season started this year, I have had a new leaf on her literally as soon as the last leaf has come out. So this is 2 plants together in one pot and they basically alternate. So one plant will get a new leaf, then the other, then the other, then the other, and that's been happening all growing season. I also have 2 other examples of cheese plants that I am currently looking after. One of them is mine, another one isn't. So I have this teeny tiny little baby, which I hope you can see her. So this little baby was in the pot with this big one when I first bought Brie, and I unpotted her back at the start of this year just so that she could have her own space and not be squashed in with these big plants. Another example is one that I grew from cutting, and this has 2 new leaves coming through, one from a single leaf cutting and then this one here which is currently growing from this double leaf cutting. So this one is doing well. It may need pruning back in the future because this leaf is not looking the healthiest, but this one is actually a gift for one of my friends. So without further ado, let's get into the tips and tricks and I hope you enjoy. So in terms of the light conditions that these guys like, I've found that bright indirect light, so I would class that as basically nearly sitting on the windowsill, not quite on the windowsill. You could edge your bets, but not in a south facing window because that sun would be way too bright. You kind of want to aim for early morning sun, late evening sun, and then kind of indirect light through the middle of the day is my best tip for the light conditions for the cheese plant, just because they can get burnt leaves if you leave them in that direct midday sun that is really, really hot. And especially at this time of year in the middle of summer, not a great thing. You don't want horrible burnt leaves because they don't look great. My next port of call is the water conditions. Now, I am not one, and you will find in future videos, I'm not one to sit here and tell you, oh, water it every week, water it every 2 weeks. It doesn't work like that. Your best bet with any plant is to check the condition of the soil. If the soil seems really dry, I usually test it just with my finger and stick my finger into the soil. If it seems really dry, the soil is not sticking to your finger or to a stick, water it. It needs watering. If it's sticky, if it feels damp, don't water it. They're really prone to root rot, and that's one thing that you have to be really, really careful of, especially with plants that are this size. This would root rot so easy. I usually leave this one until its leaves look like it needs water, so that I know that I'm not overwatering it. And this one is sat, don't know if you can see, in some stones, so that will also help with the watering and the water conditions, but also it will help with humidity, which is what I will talk about next. I got some humidity meters from Amazon, and in my room where I keep my cheese plant, I say it's about 65 to 67 on average, and that is like the lower end of ideal for a cheese plant. Technically they are tropical plants, so they're used to quite high humidity, So ideally you want to be anywhere between about 60 to 80% humidity. Now, a lot of houses these days are quite humid anyway, so I wouldn't say many people would have much of an issue until you get to the winter, and then potentially you might need to invest in a humidifier or something like that just to keep that humidity up. Now, my next tip is to do with fertilising. I usually fertilise my babies every other water, but as I say, I don't water on a schedule. I check the soil, I check the leaves, I check their conditions and just see if I think they need watering. However, you can fertilise every water during growing season and then cut that back to, I rarely fertilise when it's not growing season, when it's through the winter, just because I don't want to overdo it. But every other water, and they seem really happy at the minute. The temperature, these guys are quite flexible. Just don't let them sit in a draft or sit somewhere where it's really hot one minute and then it drops and it's really cold the next. It's not great for them. They don't like it. You'll notice that their leaves aren't happy. You'll notice that they don't like it. So yeah, just try and avoid any really big fluctuations in temperature, and obviously any drafts or any cold areas in the house, because they are tropical plants, like I say, so they prefer to be a little bit hotter. Now, one thing that I have been asked by other people who have cheese plants that I've spoken to is about misting. I am not a big fan of misting. I don't like to mist my plants. The only time I really use a misting technique is to clean my plants down. I'm going to go on in a little bit and explain my favourite way of cleaning my plants, which doesn't involve misting. But yeah, personally, I'd say don't mist. It doesn't do anything really. It doesn't really help to increase the humidity, which is what people say to do it for. So all in all, I'd say give it a miss. So I have my big cheese plant growing up a coir pole at the minute, which I keep quite damp. That is the only thing that I do actually mist, is the pole, and it seems to be really happy, growing really well. And then I have the other half up a bamboo cane just until it gets a little bit bigger and a bit stronger to grow up in coir pole. I would always say once they get established, so I wouldn't class this one as established, however this one I would class as established. I would say this could probably do with growing up a coir pole, just because it will help it will give it more stability, and it does have this section here which is where an aerial root and a new leaf obviously grow from. So I would say this is ready for a coir pole, however this one, not quite yet. As soon as it is though, I will be getting this on some sort of bamboo cane, coir pole, moss pole, anything you really want, just to give it that stability and make sure it's growing in the right direction. Which gets me on to turning your cheese plant. Now, shoot me, but I do not turn my cheese plant. I know a lot of people say to turn it. I would disagree. I think they look a lot neater and a lot prettier if you just don't turn them. The leaves grow in the same direction, and you can train your aerial roots to grow out the back where they're not splaying it everywhere basically. In future, I don't have any that are long enough at the minute, but in the future I won't be cutting my aerial roots. I'd rather train them into the soil, in which case if they're all growing out the back, I can do that without people really seeing the mess of aerial roots from the front. Now, I would say my cheese plants have always been happiest when they are a little bit root bound, when they're quite snug in their pots. So I would edge on the side of caution, and if you're not sure whether to repot, if you're not sure whether it's too root bound or not, leave it and come back to it in, I don't know, 6 months, the end of growing season this year, and reassess. I think that they prefer to have less space and more root density than having too much space, because again it can lead to root rot, and we just don't want that. When you do repot, therefore, I would always opt for a tiny increase in pot size rather than jumping from, say, a 6-inch pot to a 9-inch pot. That's just going to be too much of a difference, and you're just asking for root rot at that point. I would say 6-inch to 7-inch maybe. I think we went up 1.5 inches when I repotted Brie, and she's not doing too badly. She seems pretty happy. So I think maybe 1.5 inches at most. We'll just keep them happy, keep them ticking over. I would say is, as they grow, cut back the lower leaves, especially as it gets bigger, and especially if you want bigger leaves, like for example this one here. This is huge if you look at it compared to my hand, and I would say that the reason that I'm getting much bigger leaves than I was before in comparison is because I'm cutting back those lower leaves that are helping to photosynthesize for the plant, but are just taking nutrients away that could be put towards growth. Now, don't get me wrong, don't go crazy, don't like chop it back all the way. That's not going to help. You're going to get less nutrients, less growth. Just maybe every now and again nip off a smaller leaf at the bottom, and hopefully it will help to just increase those nutrients and get these bigger leaves growing. Now, as I say, I don't like misting, and the only time I would really use it or recommend using it would be for cleaning the plant. However, my favourite way of cleaning my plant is to literally chuck her in the shower. It's probably the easiest way of cleaning and watering as well. Obviously it's going to get water if you chuck it in the shower, and yeah, just chuck it on whatever your like least powerful mode on your shower is, and just hose them down. It's not going to do them any harm, and you will end up with really shiny leaves at the end of it. I would say chuck her in the shower, she'll be bright as rain. And there you have it. Those are my big tips and tricks on how to get your cheese plant growing really big, really full, really healthy. And I feel like I'm in a jungle right now. Hopefully that has been really helpful. I know even just sitting down to plan this video was really helpful for me in remembering things like I need to chuck it in the shower. I've not done that in a while, so I think that will be our next job. So I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe down below. I post all sorts of houseplant and gardening videos all the time. Thank you very much for watching today. I'm very grateful for your support, and I hope I will see you again in the future for more tips and tricks videos. Let me know in the comments if there are any other videos and tips and tricks that you want to know for any other plants. I'll also link my houseplant tour above so you can see what plants I own and what I can give you some more guidance towards. But anyway, thank you very much for coming back to watch my video today, and hopefully I will see you again soon. Bye!